Ow. That's not a good way to start. I hurt myself.
Knee to desk.
It's just, it's the stinging pain that goes all the way down and all the way back up. And weirdly, it doesn't hurt in the knee anymore. It now hurts like mid-thigh to head.
I wonder
That's
if the
just
British feel the same way after losing the colonies. It doesn't sting as much anymore.
Ooh.
It's just lingering pain.
Considering that the
See what I segued there?
Oh, I
That
saw you
was pretty
segue.
good.
I was just gonna go with it because it was too good of a segue to like comment on the segue. Once you comment on the segue, is it a segue anymore,
Yeah, I don't know.
or is it sort of? I'm gonna tell you right now. Since our colleague that is from the Isles still refers to us as colonists when he's irritated with us, yeah, I'm gonna say they're still hurting.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. Every so often, right?
Well,
Got to look 3,000 miles to your west and go, what could have been?
they would have hated having us. Once I don't know. Once we got past, I say around Wyoming, they'd be like, "Oh, that's too much."
Oh yeah, because they did have like the western part of Canada that they also kind of mismanaged a little bit at
kinda?
times. So I guess the western part of the United States they would have probably messed up too.
I mean, there's your counterfactual fun history thing. What if, like, Britain was like, you know what? There's more land over there than there is over here. Let's just move it there.
Yeah, let's just move.
And just take this
Pack it
castle
up.
and pack it up.
Move.
Would you have? If you
Anglos, Saxons, let's go.
were- What about the Jews? No.
No, keep them on the continent.
Keep them on the continent. So that's
Well, that's a big what if, because now I'm going, ooh, Napoleon just destroys everything at that point.
Napoleon Rex shop. He's like, I will.
And
leave
then
you
I
alone.
wouldn't have my French jokes though, because they would actually,
There would have been no
they,
World War
they,
II.
they would actually, I don't know, winning and not surrendering all the time now.
And then think about that. The French Empire versus the English Empire across the sea. The battle, like the War of the Atlantic, fought on nothing but boats. What were we talking about? Treason.
The thing says treason.
The thing says treason. Once again, it's one of those where it's like, that's a great topic. We should do that.
Yeah.
Now I want to talk about this. Let's go counterfactual.
Yeah.
But so how much treason is too much treason? Viewers at home, podcast listeners, how much treason do you see in front of you? So what's the count? How much treason is actually there?
We'll give you a second to think about it.
There is a right answer.
Yes. All right, time's up. Well, you got two. You got treason against the British Empire, since the British considered them all Englishmen.
Okay.
So you have the Declaration of Independence, which is the removal of ourselves here in the United States from the British Empire. And then you have the United States Constitution, or the Constitution of the United States, that is treasonous against the Articles of Confederation there in the middle, which is the government created and established during the war, and then went into fuller effect after the war and after the treaty was signed. So that's why you have the 1776 to 1789 years there. Their job during the war is to, try to operate a country during the war, and then
Which it does beautifully.
yeah, and then when it's on its own country, as we know with confederations, they tend to fail.
All confederations fail. All confederations have failed. That's why when you're watching your stars, like your Star Wars and stuff like that, the Confederacy of Independent Systems in the prequels, I was like, that's not gonna
work
fly.
out very well.
That's not gonna go.
Never really has. So, and you can always argue that they know they're committing treason, right? The line contributed to Franklin, whether he said it or not, is we shall all hang together or most surely hang separately, right? At the signing of the Declaration of Independence, you have the Continental Congress that we all praise, but again, all those guys knew what they were doing when they showed up, right? Nobody's under the disbelief that.
Oh, hold that thought. No. I love public education.
Yeah, little ride interruption there.
Oh my.
We had. So where were we?
You were pontificating on the beauty of the fact that they knew what they were doing in the Constitution.
Oh yeah, and it's not a surprise, right? I mean, they're going to announce that they're going to revise and do a few things in the Articles of Confederation so they can make the government move a little more efficiently and quicker and cleaner. And essentially, they just threw the baby out with the bathwater. Said, let's start this whole thing over. So it's a bloodless revolution. It's a bloodless takeover. It's probably the reason that treason is really the only crime listed in the Constitution.
Really, is it the only one we got?
It's the only one we got that I'm aware of. It's right, especially the original Constitution. I went and cheated and looked it up. It's Article 3, Section 2, Clause 1. Treason against the United States shall consist only in levying war against them or in adhering to the enemies, giving them aid and comfort. No person shall be convicted of treason unless on the testimony of 2 witnesses to the same overt act or on confession in open court. That's why treason is so hard to prove in the United States.
So you've got to admit that you did it.
Or find 2 people to admit they did it and then go, yep, they were with us. It's such a hard, and I mention it because we throw that word around a lot nowadays. That's a treasonous act. And it might be a treasonous act. But according to that definition, that's going to be really, really hard to prove. Right?
Is there court precedent? Is there Supreme Court precedent for such a thing?
There is the Aaron Burr conspiracy where he was going to take the northern part of the Louisiana Territory and go that out, but they don't have the 2 witnesses, so it has to be thrown out, right? It's in the federal court. I don't think.
How many witnesses did they get? Like one.
They had one.
One guy.
They had one guy.
One guy. He's just like
One guy said, "I'll testify," but when it never comes to court, so he doesn't have to openly admit it, so he doesn't get accused of treason either. All right. Now we do have.
Is that the beginning of the prisoner's dilemma?
We do have treasonous acts throughout history. John Brown is tried, convicted, and executed of treason against Virginia.
Right? State level.
State level, right? And that hope brings back the compact or contract theory and all those arguments of the antebellum political era that John C. Calhoun and that crew of the 1820s, 30s will be arguing, and then played out 30 years later with the start of the Civil War.
See, that's the thing. So if treason is levying war against them, things like that. But so is there a cool down period when you first make a new country? So I'm looking at that. So can we really call the Confederation, the movement from the Confederation to the actual Constitution, treason? Or is there an actual cool down period since nothing's 100% set in stone?
Well, I would argue that they might, with that, the way it's written there, I'd argue that they were thinking it's a treasonous act. I mean, when they entered in Philadelphia, they shut the doors and closed the windows. And it's summertime in Philadelphia. Why would you shut the door and close the windows? It's hot, steamy, and muggy in that town, right?
Yeah.
So they're doing something at the very least a little bit nefarious, even in their own minds. And these are the educated men of the time, so they know they're doing something that may be perceived by some
as just downright wrong.
Yeah.
So, since it was treason against ourselves, and we were pretty much doing it, and the people that started the articles basically treasoned against them, is that also treason as well? Can you treason your own treason of self?
It's a good question.
Now I've just said the word so much it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, and I think that's the other problem we run into in the modern age. We talk about all these treasonous acts, right? That people have done, or every time somebody says something that you don't like, right, or something that
it's treason.
That they did done, right? No, it's spying, it's espionage, it's stuff like that. It doesn't fall under the guise of how it's written in Article 3 here. But we like that word better because we understand what that word means.
We have a concept,
yeah,
right? We have a running concept, especially for our country, because we have the Civil War, an actual movement of states out of a union and then levying war against the other set of states, which I think is different. I know a lot of civil wars in the history have basically done that first. They've separated themselves and basically said that we consider ourselves a new country. But we had, going into the Confederate, we had a whole government setting up down there.
Yeah.
That was set, and then basically, can that be treason? Then since they're levying war against.
And a government set up like the Articles of Confederation.
Yeah,
where you
which is
needed,
so loose.
Yeah, it's so you need almost unanimous consent, and in the thing of the Articles of Confederation, there is unanimous. You need unanimous consent. You don't have a national way of taxing. You don't have this because it's all done at a local state level,
Yeah.
right? So it's almost like the Confederate States of America went back in time and borrowed a lot of stuff that we did underneath the Articles. But that's always been their argument, because is it a compact or a contract? Who is fully in charge?
When you say it, what are we talking about? Let's
The
define our term.
Constitution.
Is the Constitution a
a
compact?
a compact agreement or a contract agreement? Are we in it together? Did the states create the federal government, so the federal government has to respond to the states, or are we all in it together, right?
So a compact is we're all in it together.
Mhm.
A contract is
We created you,
and then now you run the state.
yeah, right, and that's that. The nullification crisis revolves around that.
Yeah.
With John C. Calhoun, right? Can we nullify certain laws that you've done that we don't like because we created you?
Yeah.
You don't exist without us, right?
Yes.
And that's how that all kind of underplays in the late 20s into the 30s, 40s, and in about halfway through the 50s, when states like South Carolina basically go, okay, if this happens, we're leaving.
And we feel we have the right to do so.
Yeah, and we have the right to do so. Here's all the examples why, going all the way back to Thomas Jefferson, right, and the Virginia and Kentucky resolves, right, going all the way back there. We have a right to do that, right? So, okay, if this happens, if you elect Lincoln, we're leaving, right, and try to stop us. And President Buchanan didn't. And remember, this is that long stretch where the election's in November, but the inauguration ain't until March.
Yeah, so there's a good,
There's a good 5 months.
Half a year.
There's a good 5 months where nothing happens. So is the Confederate States of America breaking off a treasonous act? Or are they using a political ploy? Kind of the same idea here. Is writing the Constitution a treasonous act against the government of the Articles of Confederation? It's how you got to parse the word.
So let's look at it from the Republic point of view. Does the fact that the people don't have much say in the formation of the Constitution? Well, don't get me wrong, we had amazing people writing it. I'm very glad we had the ones we did doing.
But you had people sent from the individual states. By the time it's over, they were all represented there for the most
Once
part.
again, though, people sent from the different states, elected basically by the other elites, right?
Well, but that's who could vote at the time. Let's not.
Yeah, let's not forget
let's
that.
make sure that that's the people that are in charge.
And that's the problem we have again, too, looking at treason back then. The America we have today is not the America of 1789, which is not the America of 1820, 1830, 1840. So the concept of that, because right now, if you ask anybody in America, I guarantee you, everyone would say that the Constitution is a contract. 100% contract. Now you get some holdouts and stuff like that, but most people around would just assume it's a contract.
But it's not. I mean,
it's not.
We fought a civil war to prove that it's not.
And we fought a civil war to prove it's not. But the thing is, we still kind of like glossed over that.
Well, we do because, I mean, there are a couple things written in the. Remember when the Constitution written, it's just the first 7 articles, right? And that's it, right? And that's what gets passed first. And the ironic thing with that is it gets passed with a promise. Pass this in the individual states, then we will add a Bill of Rights. Let's get this established first, because the Constitution establishes how the Congress runs, how the judicial runs, how the executive runs, what they cannot do. A Constitution is designed to tell the government what it cannot do.
Now, what it can do.
Yeah, not what it can do, what it cannot do. It gives it its powers. Right, and this is where we get the little argument with Article 1, Section 8, right, with the enumerated powers. Right?
Yeah.
How we were going to read that and parse that, but it basically this is what you cannot do. This is our things, right? And the agreement was simple: pass this as it is, so we can get going, so we can get established, so we can handle ourselves, and then we will give you the Bill of Rights y'all are asking for. Because remember, the Anti-Federalists per se are not against the Constitution. they want an addition of a Bill of Rights, and I think that's where we kind of lose that sometimes.
I
Some of
definitely
those,
think that's where we lose that.
some of
Because
those
that's not-
anti-federalists are just they want the addition of a Bill of Rights, and it was simple as a handshake promise: do this, and the first job of the new Congress will be add a Bill of Rights. We have them drafted.
yeah,
They're already written.
we have a basic idea.
Yeah, there's already right all that stuff because the argument was we want it written down, all of those rights that we have as citizens. Right? We're not going to play this game like the British played against us. You have them,
Oh, yeah.
right? We have an unwritten constitution in Britain.
Mhm.
No, we're going to write it down. You give us written down. Okay. Well, let's get this established, and that's the first thing we do. Deal, and enough said deal. And here we go. Because that's the other part we've lost. The Constitution is nothing but a bunch of compromises.
Oh, absolutely.
And for 250 whatever years of our history, we've always compromised. Good, bad, or indifferent, we've compromised. And then we hit the 21st century,
And compromise seems out the window.
and compromises came out the window.
So that compromise leads to reinforce the idea that it is still a compact.
Yeah,
So then how can
we're
we
working together.
So then how can we compel states to stay in if it is a compact? How do we compel these? They broke apart. Can Hawaii lead? Let's do a case study. Hawaii, since its annexation into the United States, has by its people mainly wanted independence. Whether it's been 20% in like the early days since they were enjoying the new freedoms and the freedom from taxes, to 40% just before World War II, and then now to like what 57%. Are pushing for that's still only just barely over half.
Now, are we talking native Hawaiians? Or are we talking about people in Hawaii
We're
living in Hawaii
talking
now? Because remember, we have the same argument.
once again, I have to.
We have the same argument here in Texas. We got this belief that Texas can secede because of the way it was brought in the first time. That first time in the 1840s is thrown out the window when Texas leaves. There's a whole new rule coming in when Texas rejoins the Union after the Civil War. So we can't do that.
It's still native Hawaiians, but wouldn't that be the best population to look at since it was technically their land? Now it is ours, and many people go over there and live. I quote the South Park episode. But if that is the majority of the people that live there, and if it does expand to the other groups,
maybe the case study should be Puerto Rico.
Okay, let's do Puerto Rico.
I mean, that's the Commonwealth, right? They're a Commonwealth status.
Mm-hmm.
They get some benefits of being U.S. citizens and enjoyments of that, but they don't get certain other things, right? They don't pay taxes.
But they also don't have any representation.
But they don't have representation, and they don't have, I think, the entitlements.
Yeah, they don't have the FEMA. They don't have the protection.
Yeah. So where do you want to be?
So scrap Hawaii. Don't scrap Hawaii. I love Hawaii. I also love spam. So there's a reason those two things are linked.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Puerto Rico. Should Puerto Rico be allowed to? If it's a compact, do we have a reason to keep Puerto Rico out? But if it's a contract, wouldn't we anybody could just jump in?
Well, you can't jump in because there's a process written in the document on how you get in.
Okay.
Right. So you have to follow that process to get in.
Mm-hmm.
Right. In Puerto Rico, either hasn't met or didn't want to or enjoys, because they have an election like I want to say like every 15, 20 years where they kind of put it up to a vote. What should we do? Should we stay a Commonwealth? Should we apply for statehood? Can we do these? Should we do for independence? Sorry, if Puerto Rico becomes independent, they're going to be one of the poorest nations in the entire world. They don't have their own infrastructure set up. They're so reliant on the United States.
Okay.
Right? So if they do become independent, do they do something like El Salvador? Make sure you don't have your own currency. You just use the currency of the United States, right? But you still have to have all of these alliances and all this stuff. So that's a whole little trickier thing to bring in about what to do like that. I mean, I love the argument. Okay, let's take a little smaller argument. Western Oregon and Eastern Oregon.
Oh, yes.
There's 15 counties in Eastern Oregon that want to leave Oregon and join up with Idaho.
First off,
right?
Big mistake there. But
if all of their money is being mismanaged in their eyes with from the government in Portland,
Yeah.
Salem, and on the East Coast, right there of Oregon, right? Then why don't we align with everything else? I remember as a kid, there were talks of a couple of the western provinces of Canada leaving Canada because they're more aligned, like the western part of the United States, and wanting to join the United States.
That'd be
Because the
interesting.
eastern part is, that's with them. And again, it's that old East versus West argument
Yep.
that if you teach AP US history, early AP is not North and South, it's East and West,
Mhm.
right? How far west do you go before you start losing that protection, right?
Farmers versus city dwellers.
Yeah. So you have that same argument kind
So-
of popping up. Can they be brought in? Can that? Because what would happen in Oregon is Oregon's legislature would have to agree to let them leave. Idaho's legislature would have to agree to accept them. And then the U.S. Congress would have to agree that it's okay.
Wow. So could they?
Because we're all working together.
No, it's because we're all working together. 'Cause it's a compact. Could they, in fact, proclaim their own independence from the state, not from the federal government, from their state,
Like West Virginia?
like West Virginia did?
Like West Virginia or the Franklin, that part of Tennessee that became the Commonwealth of Franklin for a while, right? It's the same concept, right? When we're not allowed to create new states out of current states.
So wait,
So
that's written
West
down?
Virginia becomes Virginia,
Mhm.
comes out of Virginia. As much as the United States of America in the 1860s was claiming
Mhm.
that the Confederate, those that left are still part of the United States, they still created West Virginia out of a state. No. They left. Remember, it's okay. We can do that. We can take their land from them because they're rebelling against us. But wait, aren't there still supposed to be seats for them in the United States Congress? Where we're still calling them for roll when we open up a new Congress every other year.
Yep.
But
So okay, so it's a contract when it suits our needs.
It's-
It's a compact
exactly,
when it suits our needs.
it's the enumerated clause, right? How are we going to read it? And if we can compromise around all that, we've been pretty good for
47.
47 years, right?
Yep.
Until we get to the 21st century. And then I think, again, that compromise is out the window. With my Euro kids, we talk about Locke and Hobbes, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Right, and how similar they are and how different they are.
Mhm.
But they can't find common ground because they're always bickering back and
Well-
forth. And if they could compromise, man, could we maybe get some good stuff out of that?
Could we
Right?
compromise? Here's the thing. I've
That's
always
like what we were doing. We were compromising.
Yeah.
Enlightenment to some of those guys was the art of the compromise, right?
Yeah.
Because we know Madison shows up and goes, "Here you go, fellas. I got our new government right here.
it's a really good one.
It's a really good one." And the people read and go, "Yeah, that's great. That's great." And then some places go like, what about this and this and this? And the guy from Connecticut, Roger Sherman, goes, "That's okay. I got our compromise right here. Let's figure this out," right? Because if they couldn't compromise, that was going to stall really quick, and everybody was going to heck home.
I'm gonna have to stick with.
And somebody's going to have to wake up old GW at the front. He's going to have to pack up, and then he's going to be pissed. that one, he got woke up from his nap, and two, I came all the way to Philadelphia for no dang reason. You brought me here from Mount Vernon,
You can't.
right? So let's compromise. And that becomes the way we do things. Hell, we have these compromises throughout history. Right? We call them compromises. We know what we're doing. Are we delaying things? Yeah. Do we know we're delaying things? Yes. Are we hoping things go away, aka slavery?
Yep.
Right? So we don't have to keep compromising because they still think it's going to, at least some of them do. Right? It's still going to naturally decline.
And that's a topic for a different time. The
Yeah.
whole idea of was slavery on its way out? Because I feel totally qualified to go on that one and do the now. But so let's recap then. So all these compromises, depending upon the great thing about it is we have the argument of contract versus compact, but the great thing about America, once again I quote South Park, we can hold two views at the same time and there's no cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
Because, as you say, the key word there being compromise.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
As long as we compromise, as long as we can compromise, we're okay with being a treasonous act to overthrow the Articles if it gave us a better government. Because remember, Locke says we can remove our government. It's not doing its job. The Articles were not doing its job.
Locke says anytime, it is a moral imperative that we change that. Thomas Jefferson says the same thing. If your government is not meeting your needs, you have a moral obligation to change it
And that's
one way or the other.
What they rationalized they were doing.
Intermission, put a pin on this?
Intermission.
All right. All right, and we're back.
Oh, wow. No beeps this time.
No beeps.
No,
There's
no,
no beeps.
no
when you
beep
just
and
start
count back
up.
because we just pause. Yeah.
There's no beeps when you just start back up. No. For you guys, that was but a second. For us, it was more than a second
About 45 minutes, maybe an hour.
to sit there and cogitate. Anywho,
Is that like contemplate, but a better way of saying it?
cogitate, I think contemplate is you can do that on a toilet.
Okay.
Cogitate, you can do that while you're walking.
Oh, okay. Oh, I just call them DWTs. Dog walking thoughts.
Dog walking thoughts, things like that. For me, it's waiting for something, waiting for the oven to heat up. When I'm cooking dinner, it's like
preheat, yeah.
the preheat, and you're sitting there going, huh.
It's a way to make this go faster. Oh, wait, there is. It's called a new stove, and we can't afford it because we're teachers.
Can't afford it because we're teachers. I want one of those super ovens. It's just like $350. Done. It is the sun in here. But we don't have access.
Scale back to 350.
Oh. So, all right.
Put your cake in now.
Why is your cake not in here? This is the thing.
Chocolatey.
I would like to remind the people that listen to this, whether listed or unlisted, we don't get paid for this. So, and you can tell why. So the question before us, before the council is, let's define our terms. Like that's my big thing. So when you say we've lost the ability to compromise, can you give me an example? And can you limit it to one example?
Yes, no. Well, let's talk about what they're arguing right now. The debt ceiling.
Oh, let's talk about the debt
Right.
ceiling.
You have the Speaker of the House meeting with the President of the United States, and they apparently have this little tense meeting. It goes on for a couple hours just last night, and they both come out bad mouthing each other this morning. I mean, seriously, I get it, but did you not get any work done there? And if you're doing it just to bluster and make positions and things like that, we've seen it done. It was LBJ running the Senate in the 1950s. But they got stuff done behind the scenes.
Yeah, they meet
right?
together afterwards.
We've seen it before. Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich, right? They got stuff done behind the scenes in the mid 90s.
But they yelled
right?
at each other out loud.
Yeah. Okay, if that's happening, I'm with you. But I haven't seen that happening in a long, long time.
Especially,
there's this mistrust and dislike for everything.
Hold on.
Out of the compromise.
Sorry. Students walked in. They just do that.
They do.
They just jump in.
They don't knock anymore. They do the same.
knock
They do the same thing down in athletics. They don't knock at the coach's
They
office.
pull
Just
I
walk
think
in.
anyone remember Kramer. They pull a Joey. They just jump in the room.
Yeah.
And you're like, hi, can I help you?
So
And then someone will ask me for a water bottle.
that was kind of different.
Do you have a water bottle? It's like,
Not a bottle of water, but a water
bottle. Yep, got an Nalgene over there. It's all yours. What the hell? Anyway, debt ceiling.
The
yelling at
loss
each
of the
other.
art of the
The
compromise.
loss of the art of
At
the
least the political compromise that we've kind of built this nation on, is those guys compromising with each other to try to get stuff done, to at least move forward. And I keep referencing the 21st century, but it seems like that's when we stopped moving forward with stuff. Now we just kind of wait. Everything's an election cycle, right? It is April of 2023. The elections in November of 24, but we're talking about, right, the list of Republicans running for president, and it keeps growing here, there, and everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we don't get a list of Democrats growing here, there, everywhere.
I was going to ask if I could get you.
Twice.
Yeah, interrupted again.
Twice.
I lost my train of thought again.
Oh man. Words and things.
This is turning into the bad comic version of
So
our castings.
all right, then. So we talked about the fact that you can't really get anything compromised anymore. It's all about blame. It's all about waiting. It's all about scoring points. That I think is the biggest problem. It's all more about public perception, and the kind of politicians we have now focus on trying to sway that public position quickly.
Yeah, it's almost like a popularity contest.
It is.
How many clicks can we get on the news article? How many likes can we get on the social media?
The outrage cycle.
Right.
When all the politicians work on outrage cycles.
Yeah.
What can I make you mad about just now before the election? Because it doesn't really matter. Like, remember 2016's Republican primary? That's the word.
Yeah.
And how it was cutthroat. I mean, one of the things that Ronald Reagan said was, "You never attack each other.
Yeah, you never attack your own party.
You never attack your own party."
And that's the problem historically with the Republican Party do.
Mm-hmm.
They always do that. The Republican Party has done that almost from its inception.
Just
Right? It's the Democratic Party that historically has been better at keeping things in house
Mm-hmm.
with that. But the Republican Party, and that's what Reagan was alluding to when he talked about that, is we in this party have a history of and he's not too far to blame because he went after Nixon a bunch
Oh, he
when
did.
Nixon was president.
And that's
So
the SALT
he-
I Treaty.
He's throwing himself in there as well and trying to clean that up to an extent. But yeah, 16 is just ugly. When you start going lowest common denominator,
Mm-hmm.
well, lowest common denominator typically ends up winning, right? Because it gets you the answer you want.
It gets you the answer you want, and it attracts the most number of people
And it's
because
the simplest.
it's the simplest. We don't like complicated. That's why we kind of ignored the whole compact versus contract argument. We don't like complicated. We want it to be a very quick soundbite. United States is a contract. You make a social contract with the United States every day. That's why we make kids pledge the flag.
Right. Well, and when you make it a soundbite, it's harder to explain a compromise.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
'Cause you have to.
it's harder to push a compromise. And as we get further and further away from compromising, and we can make this a whole social argument too. Do we compromise now in a greater society? Right. This idea coming into play. But that's a different discussion, maybe for.
That's another 3 podcasts from now. We got 4 more lined up.
Yeah.
Okay, then I hate to leave it on a complaint, though. I mean, we've identified the problem. The problem is there's lack of compromise, which would allow us to complete the compact of this country. I'll give one of mine, but if you give one of yours, how do we get back there? How do we get back to a place of compromise?
We have to get back to a point, I think, where the squeaky wheel doesn't always get the grease.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can be loud and you can have your points, and yes, in our system, right?
Mm-hmm.
Minority rights, whatever the minority is, whether it's a social, economic, political, lifestyle, cultural minority, their rights need to be protected.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't necessarily mean they're guaranteed and have to be approved by everybody, or do they have to be protected? And I think right now we've stretched that to such an extreme that both the extremes are dominating that news cycle.
Yeah.
And how do we get rid of that extreme mentality when 1% or 2% are the most vocal?
Mm-hmm.
But that's always when you turn on the news. And again, no matter what news you look at, whether you click on Fox News or CNN.com, right, you're going to get one extreme or the other nowadays. And it's like, where do we go? When CNN All Politics page used to be the best website to go to in the 90s, in the early 2000s,
Mm-hmm.
right? Fox News was, bills itself as fair and balanced when it first came on 25 plus years ago,
God, yeah.
right? I think they're both full of themselves now. And can we get rid of the extremism?
I think that's a really good point. I think getting rid of the extremism allows you to listen to each other because you can actually hear each other. I would argue more people need to start getting involved in local politics. I would argue that more people need to be available to run or take the courage to run, including, especially if your party is not the majority party of your state. There has to be another voice. The fact that every time I go to the polls and there's so many people for different positions running unopposed.
Yep.
That's one of the things we need. because that starts the conversation at the local level,
Okay.
and you can extrapolate from there. Even if that person is not destined, not majority, like numbers wise, will never win.
Yeah.
The point is, you have to bring up and keep it civil. We
Well, and
have
that's
to,
the problem we've been running into, hasn't it?
yeah,
This
we've
is
got to
civility
keep
part.
it civil.
And I think that's one of the reasons that more people don't get into politics now.
Is because it's so,
It's becoming uncivil, right?
Yeah.
And they dig through everything, and everything gets brought up, and everything's nasty, and everything can get twisted, left or right. It
Oh,
can get
yeah.
twisted, right? But both sides are just as guilty of it,
and they are
from
happy
time to
to do
time.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, they are happy to do
right?
it.
It's not. We've had dirty politics in this country before, right?
Yeah.
Andy Jackson blames the Democratic Republicans and those that supported Quincy for killing his first wife, right?
Yeah.
And all that other stuff. We've seen ugly things, and we've had these nicknames for politicians for a really long time.
hmm
I think now, though, it's so readily available, right? You have TikTok and YouTube Shorts and everything else where you can kind of slant it to hear what you want to hear.
Oh, yeah, the echo chamber problem.
Yeah.
The fact that the great thing about the echo chamber is it doesn't have to be a big echo chamber because no one has the sustained time to listen to a 45-minute explanation, even if it's your echo chamber. You want that quick hit. Every time I go on YouTube, I see the same thing. There's this guy, Brian Tyler Cohen, and all of his titles are these clickbait titles. Trump decimated in this one move. This one politician said goes mega viral, and it's like,
Yeah.
no, it doesn't. If it went mega viral, someone else would have told me about it. And if so and so or any politician was devastated by this thing, we wouldn't have this problem anymore. It's ridiculous. You can't over sensationalize and then expect people to sit there and go, well, the problem's solved.
I also think we have an issue of distinguishing someone's opinion
Mm-hmm.
and taking it as fact.
Yeah, that is a
Right?
huge
'Cause
problem.
That clickbait stuff is that person's opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you can agree with it, and you can do what you will with whatever that was, but right? Are you willing then to look at a counter argument, or at least listen to? And I'm going to go the other route really quick. If you look at conservative voices on college campuses,
Mm-hmm.
always seemingly getting shouted down and shouted at by the more woke, as the expression is today for them, voices of, and you watch some of that, and you're like, where did this younger generation? And there's not much difference between some of those conservative voices. They're in their mid 30s, early 40s, and these college students are 18 to 25 if they're in a master's program. But there's such a disconnect politically there that it's personal or more emotional than personal, right?
Yeah.
And you try to take on this so much emotion that it becomes so personal. If somebody says something that you don't agree with, it's like a personal attack.
And the problem with that is if you can't separate someone else's opinion versus political reality or reality itself, what happens is you keep overreacting. And when the big problems do show up, when the stuff that everyone needs to take a notice of and go, whoa, 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 what are we doing here? When we do that, when we forget to do that, we miss those things. We miss that. Wherever you stand on Roe v. Wade, the fact that it was still just precedent should not have been the thing. We should have done a law about it.
If
we were-
you
if we
wanted
felt
to do
so-
something about it, yeah,
We
exactly.
should have made it a law.
Yep.
We should have actually stopped and looked at ourselves as a country and gone, we need to talk about this. And we need rational thought.
And that part right now, we're not going to get.
We're not gonna-
I'm sorry, we're not going to get it. Right? You could have maybe, and then both the extremes on that issue. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but both the extremes on that
Yeah, no,
issue,
no.
right? Because you have one group arguing this and another group arguing that, and then kind of using some European countries as an example, and not really understanding what the European countries have as law, and going,
Having a surface level knowledge and trying to use
Yeah.
that as
You throw out Sweden, you throw out Germany, you throw out these places, and
Yeah.
then if you don't actually research and go, okay, what is this law? How does this work in that country? Sweden, right, is the prime example of the glorious socialist country that we all should become. It should become Sweden. That's what the younger
Is
generation.
it Sweden? I thought it was Norway.
It's Scandinavia, right? I think it actually is Sweden, right? That's the one where okay. And then you ask them to talk about it, and they really can't, other than free, 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 free.
And yeah,
And that's the problem. It's not free. You've already paid for it.
now you just got to use it.
Yeah.
And that's got to get that mindset out. The too emotional. Once again, that's what happened the first time we went through this. Eventually, the arguments in the 1840s, 1850s start getting more emotional.
Well, you could talk about even the Articles of Confederation being that way,
Okay,
right? We're 13 individual colonies.
We
In theory, most of us set up, at least a, proprietary charter, right? Royal colonies, right? We're all kind of different, right? So week one, our say, we want to have our say, those sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
That's what a confederation gives you. It gives you that local autonomy, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
That's that interplay, right? We're going to look after ourselves first, right? We're Virginians first,
Virginia's first, American
second, right? There we go. I mean, why does Lee join the Confederacy? Because Virginia.
I can't
joined
fight
the
against
Confed-
Virginia.
I can't fight against
Can't
Virginia,
fight
right? And that's still there, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's that interplay there with the Articles of Confederation. What the Constitution is trying to do, at least what Madison and Hamilton and John Jay are trying to do when they first set it up, is try to bring that together. Again, going all the way back to Franklin and the French and Indian War, right? Of the
Albany
1750s,
Congress,
right? Yeah, we got to start coming together. If we're 13 separate entities doing 13 things, and we all can't agree on anything, right? Because it says it has to be unanimous, and only 9 or 10 of us show up every session anyways,
Mhm.
we can't get anything done. We need a system, they're going to argue, that kind of compromises everybody. That if we have a quorum now in Congress, we can pass
Yep.
it off, right? Those types of things. That's in the Constitution, right? Those types of things. So find that compromise. Where is it today, right? We have, you brought it up. We have a cycle where the Republicans are starting to kick in, right? The governor of Florida is going to announce today that he's going to run. So you have some pretty big name younger Republicans running,
Mhm.
right? But bad pun coming, the elephant in the room is the former president, whose one of his things is mocking and talking crap about the people in his own party when
Mhm.
he's running against them. And then you have the Democratic side, where you have Robert Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. running, and the Democratic National Committee says, no, we're good. We don't need to have any debates, or we don't need to have a lot of this stuff, because we're going to run President Biden, right?
Which takes away all discourse.
And RFK Jr. in a lot of states is polling at 15 to 20%,
Which is substantial.
which is substantial, which would get you on a debate stage in anybody's definition of who deserves to have a debate over the past few election cycles.
And that leads to the problem of blind loyalty, the idea that we don't sit there and think what is best for all of us. Where can we get that compact? We're all in this together. It's, look, whatever I can do to make this other part of the country lose or angry or just whatever I can do. And it's both sides.
Yes,
100% both
it's
sides.
both sides.
And the problem with our system is there's not enough compromise in it that we could have a third party.
No.
Because if we had more compromise and more eye towards compromise, a third party would be viable that would say, here's an alternative point of view, and we could all sit back and go, I see what you're saying there. I mean, basically the answer is just go to a parliamentary system.
Yeah. Well, and the third party's history in this country has always been one subject,
tear one apart.
one topic parties, right?
Bull moves.
The Bull moves,
Tears
which is the progressives, the Ross Perot,
Yeah.
right? The American Party during the 1960s
Yep.
with George Wallace
Yep.
running, right? You have this one that's kind of just offshoot and break. You don't have one. You don't have somebody that can. Well, a unifier. We don't have that unifier,
No.
right?
No, we don't, because because unification doesn't get you voted in.
Not anymore.
And unification doesn't. Unification, the concept of the compact, we actually want it to be more of a contract. And we're willing to push the idea of treason again. And start accusing everyone of treason in order to legitimize our side. But that person's committing treason. It's like, well, hold on.
Well, it's the using the government as a strong arm tool, right?
Mhm.
Whether you're using the FBI or the IRS, whether you're going back to Nixon or the accusations against the current Department of Justice right now, or it's the House in the '90s impeaching Bill Clinton, knowing that he won't be removed, or the House in the 20 teens impeaching President Trump twice, knowing dang good and well he's not going to be removed, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the point? What's the purpose, right? If it's high crimes and misdemeanors, and if it's strong enough, if you have a strong enough case, then how come every time we try to impeach a president, and the other time, Andrew Johnson's impeached, right? That's a straight political move, right? We should learn from these things that it's not going to happen. All right, you've proved your point. Cool. You charge them with a bunch of stuff. Half the country doesn't believe you crap that you're charging them with.
And now you've just turned them off to the idea of thinking about it.
And compromising.
So in the end, to fulfill the promise of the Compact of the United States, we have to come back with another COM word: compromise.
Yeah, we got to compromise.
We have to compromise for the Compact. I've got our slogan. Guess who's jumping in?
We can change the title.
We got Yeah. Oh, no, I'm going to keep that up there.
I'll change the title. Subtitle.
Compromising for the Compact. I like that. And on that note, I think that's good.
That's a good place to end.
That's a good place to end. And we'll be back later with another one. But until then, friggin' listen to each other. Listen. Don't actually sit there and prep for your time to talk. Just sit there and actually listen. And then, God help us, summarize what you've heard to show that you were listening. And then the other person reciprocates by also doing that. That's going to extend the time. But then again, that's the great thing about coffee. It's got to cool down. And that's how you do it. That's how we save America. And that's when you get appetizers. So you can cool that down. And we've saved it using capitalism.
There we go.
Thank you.